Hello, everybody. I hope that you can hear me. My video should start here in just a second. We are so excited to have you this evening for our first ICS alumni webinar. We are just really excited about doing this and connecting our alumni with some of our resources that we have here on campus. It's not just for our undergrads, but this is also a service for all of our alumni for life. A little bit about me. I work here at Butler in internship and career services. I'm a 2016 grad. I graduated in December. And so I work as the employer assistant in the ICS office. I've actually worked in the office for about 4 years. I worked as a student assistant and as an intern, and now I work with all of our awesome employers and manage our awesome student assistants. So it's fun because I get to do a little bit of everything, and I do our career fairs and all that jazz. So if you're wanting to recruit some Butler interns, I am your gal to talk to. So I see that we've got some folks still joining in. A couple things that I put in the chat. Make sure that you're muted. It'll go for ease of conversation, as well as you don't want me to see you. If you don't want the video, you can just click stop video on the main panel and then you are good to go. Oh man, we've got 30 people with us.
Join the meeting.
Oh, there we go. We got some excitement going on. So we've got 30 people with us. So let's go ahead and get started. And as other folks stream in, that's awesome. So a little bit about, let's see if I can, I'm gonna have to scroll to use it or use these. Well, hold tight. Looks like I can't move my screen. There we go. So a little bit about internship and career services. We're up on the 3rd floor of Atherton Union. So we're a free resource for students and alumni for life, and we run the gamut. So career counseling, professional document critiques, practice interviews, self-assessment tools, career fairs and events, or a full service career center. Something interesting for you guys to know too is we do appointments via Skype and via email as well. So if you're from Florida, Texas, Colorado, we are still a resource for you and we're here to help you. It's not just for our folks here in Indy, it's for everybody, which is awesome. So before we get into this, this webinar is about articulating your skills and articulating your strengths through your resume and through LinkedIn. And so the first thing that I really want to talk about is before you can articulate who you are to an employer, you have to know who you are and what you're about. I think we've all been in a position where we've had a job that we don't like and we're ready to move on to the next thing, or we're not sure what we want to do, but we can't take the next step and make it a productive step forward unless we know who we are and where we want to go. Like, if you don't like your job, what is it that you don't like about it and what do you want to change? Those are the kinds of questions that we have to ask ourselves. So the first thing that you have to think about when you are going through the job hunt, the job search, is what do you love to do? And this is usually an easy question to answer. So what are your hobbies? What are your passions? And what projects like excite you at work? I know for some of us, it might be that we like too many things. So it's hard to figure out what do you really love to do and what are you really passionate about, which is a really good problem to have. And we also have to say, what are your natural talents? Like, where do you experience the most success? Where do you just feel like you thrive? What are environments that are meaningful to you? What are experiences that are meaningful to you? I also think it's important to consider, like, what are your friends and family tell you that you're good at? Because sometimes we can't see in ourselves what we're good at, and so other people can call that out in us. So I think that's a good thing to reflect on. But we can't always just think about all of the positive happy-go-luckies, because we all know that we all have challenges. And so what do you not like to do? Well, this is pretty easy. You know, there's so many things that we don't like, and you know pretty easily what that is. I also think it's important to say, where do you naturally struggle to succeed? So first off, like, what types of personalities do you struggle to work with? Like, when you're applying for new jobs and interviewing for new jobs, like, what kind of a boss are you looking for? And you have to, in order to find a good boss, you kind of need to know, like, what can be a challenge for you in working with folks, and where are you difficult to work with as well. So also, like, what type of management style hinders your work? Like, for me, I really like to have a lot of autonomy. And so I know when I go into an interview or I'm networking, like, I know I want to work for somebody who can give me that freedom to run with new ideas and be independent. But other people don't like that. Other people like more structure. So it's about reflecting on those sorts of things, about where do you struggle and how do you make that work for you. I think also, what projects and tasks do I have a difficult time completing? I used to hate Excel, and so I knew that about myself, and I didn't like really detail-oriented work. But I tried to improve that and make it better, and now it's not so bad. I also think it's important to consider, like, what constructive criticism have you received from people that you trust? So what about your trusted mentors or trusted friends or trusted family? Like, what feedback are they giving you about areas to grow? And so when we know, like, where we struggle to succeed, but then where we also, like, thrive, and reflect on that, like, you can move forward in a much more productive direction than if you're just like, I'm going to submit my resume to 10 places. And it also helps, I think, when you're crafting your cover letter, to know, like, what you're passionate about and what those strengths are, so that you can pull from them when you are trying to articulate your skills and your strengths. And last but not least, I think it's important to evaluate, like, what your career values are, like, what is important to you. And for all of us, that's different. So how important is a high paying job or industry? For some people, a high salary is important, and that's what is, like, necessary at the end of the day. For other people, making a lot of money doesn't really matter. How important to you is work-life balance? Like, do you have a family? Do you have kids? Do you want to get home by 5? Or is that not really a concern for you, and you don't really care about, like, being home at 5? Like, you're fine to work on the clock, like, in a lot of our tech startups here in Indy. Do you value stability in your job? Or are you okay with ambiguity? So do you like a company where there is a set path for growth, or are you okay with not really knowing? I think, like, the best example for me in that is, like, working in a financial institution as opposed to working in a tech startup. Because in a financial institution, they've been around for a long time, and you know the path, you know what the company is about, and you know where it's going. In a tech startup, you might start and fail in 2 years, and you don't know that. But maybe that's not, like, a concern for you. And I also think it's important to consider, do you want opportunities for growth? I think, like, for recent grads, you might be in a position where you just want to get experience, be in there for 3 years and get out. But for other people who are further in their career, they might want to be in a place and stay there for a long time. And that's great. But you just need to know that going in, so that you can ask the right questions and explore the right opportunities for those types of things. So if you're like, all of this self-reflection is confusing, and I, like, don't know, and I'm not very introspective, that's totally fine. My mom is that way, and we love these people, and it is what it is. And so ICS, we offer a few self-reflection and assessment resources. So Myers-Briggs, which is, like, the ENFJ, ENTP, so your 4-letter code that kind of describes so, like, your temperament, how you intake information, how you make decisions, and kind of how you structure your life. So that's really interesting. If you are in the process of applying for jobs, I think that Strengths Quest is the best resource that you can do. It's my favorite. So it takes, like, your 5 strengths, and it gives you, so mine are activator, futuristic, communication, responsibility, and learner. And those pieces of me, it's not just, like, limited to, like, one thing. Like, it also can describe, like, what I'm talented in my work, but also how I thrive in work culture. That, like, so futuristic, I need a workplace that allows me to plan, that allows me to create a vision, create a strategy. And I know that about myself from Strengths Quest. And it gives you great verbiage for that awful, so tell us about yourself question. You're set, like, your strengths, you can say it right away. The last one is strong interest inventory, which is super helpful for those of you who might not even know what you want to do, or you are in a place that you don't know where you want to go next. It's really interesting because it takes, like, surveys all the interests of people in a bunch of different professions, and then it matches your interests to their interests, and then compares you with like those top careers. Like, so mine's like attorney. So basically my interests most closely align with the interests of people who work as attorneys. So it's really interesting to look at what other people like you are currently doing. So those are some great resources, free for life. It's super helpful to craft some language to articulate your skills if self-reflection is difficult for you, or even if it isn't, it's just helpful to have some structure and sometimes like see yourself objectively, because that can be hard because, you know, we're always right. And so it's good to take yourself out of that. So now you've done some self-reflection and you're ready to put yourself out there. And so what does that mean? That means that you're going to write your resume. It means that you are going to do your cover letter. Also, we got a question, and yes, this is being recorded. So if you have to go, then you can check it out later, but we would love for you to stay so you can ask questions. So we're going to start talking about resumes. If it'll let me click over into here again. Here we go. So the purpose of your resume. So sometimes we're like making these documents and it's like, why are we even doing this? This is so much work. But it's to prove your past successes and accomplishments, to showcase your strengths, to highlight your most relevant experiences, and prove that you're a strong candidate. So before you even begin writing, before you even start, you need to be familiar with the job description and what they're looking for in a candidate. So I tend to view job descriptions as like road maps for where you need to go. So if you're applying for a job as a teacher and the first thing they say is like experiencing managing large groups, the first bullet point on your resume needs to match up with being able to manage large groups. That's exactly what you need to be doing. You need to like basically map it out for them so that they don't have to find the connections, especially if you are moving industries. You have to draw those connections for them and tell them why you're wanting to move industries. And so you need to back up your experience with that. Also, just brainstorming past experiences that prove you have the skills that they need. So sometimes these things aren't even like your typical job. Like sometimes they're volunteer opportunities or community involvement. So for my current position, my first experience wasn't my internship with the office. My first experience was my exec role in my sorority. And for me, that was super helpful because I did so much student development and event planning, and that's what I do now. So sometimes brainstorming and thinking through these things are really helpful because you might think of an experience that you haven't considered in light of a professional document. And so you have to tailor your resume. If I can like send you with anything, it's that tailoring your resume makes a big difference and helps set you apart. There is nothing worse than reading someone's resume that you know isn't written for you and they're just like applying to apply. When you tailor your resume, it shows that you've taken time and dedication and that you care and you're invested in that, and they're more likely to take a chance on you, to have a discussion with you about the job. Last I checked, and this keeps getting shorter, was that the average employer looks at a resume for 6 seconds before they make a decision about you. Like if you haven't spelled it out for them exactly why they should hire you for this job, then it's going in the trash. And so tailoring your resume is super important. So when it comes to just like thinking about like structure and what that even needs to look like some of us, we have all kinds of different things. So before I start talking a little bit more about each section, I want to show you this great resource that our office has. So butler.edu/ICS, easy enough. If you scroll down, we have our guide to professional success. And so this breaks down so many great things. So it talks about our assessments, how to conduct a job shadow or an informational interview, if you're writing a CV, writing your resume, writing a cover letter. But the best thing is at the very bottom. So we're going to scroll here for a minute. Is all of these examples in the back of what different resumes need to look like or could look like. Because for different fields, it's different. So, you know, in accounting and finance, you might have a more traditional resume, but teaching or graphic design, people are going to be more creative just by like the nature of the industry. So once I get down here, we'll talk a little bit more about this page in a little bit. But these are some examples. So here's like a communications and psychology. And this is pretty traditional. You have your summary, your education, your experience broken down with a headline that, again, tailors your resume, and then leadership, involvement, and some technical skills. Then I think the other one that's really helpful for this group here is we have an alumni resume. So somebody who's been out for about 5 years here in this example. So notice their education's at the bottom. They have some community engagement. So like their volunteer opportunities are with bullet points and described. And then some of their other experiences in a professional summary as well. But like right up here, this is a resume for somebody who graduated from the Bachelor of Arts in Art and Design. So again, notice that it's a little bit more creative. So like this form that we're going to talk about isn't the only form that you have to use necessarily. Like it can be creative, it can be fun, it can be you. Because yeah, if you're applying to be a graphic designer, like this would probably just like kill your soul because it's not pretty, but it's clean, it's neat, and this is how I have my resume, but that's my industry. So this is an awesome resource to look at some of these things. So let's talk a little bit about what these look like, these different pieces. So your parts of a resume, your summary, education, experience, leadership, community service, and technical skills. So first you have your objective statement or your professional summary. It's pretty basic. So seeking a type of position in a type of organization or field where I might utilize my proven skills. So this is where you need to tailor it. It shouldn't just be like, I'm seeking a finance position in the nonprofit industry where I may utilize my proven skills. Like you need to say seeking like the employer assistant position in Butler University's internship and career services where I may utilize my proven relationship building skills and project management. It needs to be specific. So these are pretty optional, but I think if you are switching industries or maybe you're a stay-at-home mom wanting to get back into the workforce, I think that these professional summaries are really important because it gives some context to where you're coming from and why you're interested in a position. It's also, you need to state what you can bring, not what you can gain. So it's not like, I'm just here to get some experience, or like at Butler, a lot of times I've heard from our HR department that we hear like, I'm just here to get, so my kids can go to school for free. Like, no, don't say that. You need to say, what do you bring? What do you contribute? And then you can have conversations later about how the organization can also benefit you. So your education. So this is what my education section looks like. I have a Bachelor of Arts in Spanish, and I had a double major in political science. It's pretty simple. It's pretty clean. Your GPA doesn't need to be on there anymore. If you have honors that you're proud of and want to share, that's great. If you are a recent graduate and you're maybe transitioning industries and you have some technical skills from your classes, you may want to include some relevant coursework, but that would be on a case-by-case basis. Then also just include all of your anticipated or your earned degrees. So if you have a master's or you're working on your master's, you can be sure to include that as well. That's super awesome. The only change I would make to that is just put anticipated your graduation date so that they know you're still in the program, or it spells it out a little easier than them going, okay, wait, so they graduated in 2020 and when does that work? It just makes it cleaner. So your skills section, I think it's optional depending on your field and where you're applying for. So if you are a teacher, like your skills of, are you CPR certified, first aid, those sorts of things, that's important to include. I think if you're applying for a job that requires language skills, that's really important. Then IT, graphic design, all of that, including your computer programs, is really important, that you know how to do, like Illustrator or Photoshop. But for me, I don't have a skills section because my job doesn't have a language, computer program, or CPR or first aid requirement. So I don't have it. But if you're in those fields, they need to know what your abilities are with those sorts of programs. So experience. So you're going to title you can have multiple headings, but you want to tailor your heading to the field that you're in. So, you put your job up top, which is just right here, the Butler University or where you work and the location and how long. And then you'll want to include your accomplishments. You can have more than one section. So like for me, so I worked in politics for 2 years and then transitioned back into higher ed. And so I have a political experience section and a higher education experience section. Showcase your strongest accomplishments, and you want to include what is relevant. We got a lot of questions beforehand about, I've been working for 20 years, like what do I need to include? And, I believe that, well, we teach that you can have a page for every 10 years of experience. And you can, but you also want to highlight whatever the most relevant is. So even if it was your job like 2 jobs ago, I think that if it speaks higher to the position, you might want to include that on a higher piece. Where did that go? Here we go. So how do you market your skills on your resume? So you're going to utilize the ICS Guide to Professional Success. Like I showed you. And I also want to show you this awesome resource here. So when you're crafting your bullet points, like this thing is the bomb. I just updated my resume to apply for a graduate program, and I'm still using this. I love it. So it's all these action verbs to help you craft your bullet points. So your management skills, communication skills, research skills, all of that are here, and it's an awesome resource to help you market. You want to focus on your accomplishments, and you want to match your skills to the job. You want to quantify when possible and include the how, the why, or the result. So what does all that even mean? Let me show you. So you want to talk about when you're writing these bullet points and your experiences, like you want to answer one of 3 questions when you're writing these. So how did you do something? Why did you do it? Or how did your work have an impact? Like what changed because you did it? So I love both of these examples. Conducted reading groups for 15 preteens to encourage an interest in literature and reading. If I would have just said like conducted reading groups, like, okay, cool, like you conducted reading groups. But now I know like to what extent you did it and what was the purpose. And so it just gives you a broader picture of what it is. And for some of us, like me, I can't always remember all of the numbers. So it's okay to say like about or approximately or nearly, because, sometimes we just can't remember. But you do always want to be honest and truthful about everything that you put on your resume, because if they're checking references, if they are, doing background checks, like you want that information to be accurate, because in your background check, it includes all of your employment history. So that's something to look at. Also include your leadership and community service. Like I'm sure like when you're doing hiring that you want to see somebody who's engaged in their community and like cares about the things that they do. You can also include bullet points and also like share leadership. Like if you are, like if you're on a board, if you serve at a nonprofit, like those things are important and it shows like who you are. I included the little Butler way down here because, we're all Bulldogs and we're all people that care about the communities that we live in. And so you want to demonstrate that because that can set you apart, make you a better employee. If you care about the community you live in, you're going to care about the places that you work, the place that you live. And it makes you, it just makes you a more better candidate. So we've got a question for everybody. So are the action verbs useful for just getting past resume reading programs? So they actually help when a real person's reading your resume, and does it cause annoyance when there are a ton of buzzwords? I don't think they're buzzwords. I think they're just strong words. It's just being able to communicate something more effectively. I don't think spearheaded or conducted or attained are buzzwords. I think they're just strong, just like declarations of what you're doing. There are certain resume reading programs that, like, if you submit your resume, like some companies use this, and then it automatically reads your resume and it looks for words that are in the job description on your resume, and then it will tag you as a good candidate. So that is something to keep in mind, that so some people are looking for buzzwords because that's how that they are reading and dealing with the mass influx of resumes that they're dealing with. But that's a good question. Thank you. Okay. So your final tips and tricks. So like we talked about, like you want to be truthful and you want to be accurate. You want your Times or Arial font. Like, no, well, first off, never use Comic Sans. And second, you want it to use you don't want to use a fancy, weird font. You just want it to be simple. 1 page for every 10 years of work experience. But if you don't feel like that all of your experience is relevant, like you don't feel like you have to put it on there, or you can put it at the bottom and put like other professional experience on there as well. So also just 11 to 12 point font. You can do 0.75 or 1 inch margins just to give you more space. Just abbreviate your states, spell out 1 through 9. Triple check for any errors. You don't want any spelling mistakes, none of that. But you also want to be consistent. So your cover letter and your resume, and then any like a reference sheet or anything like that, like they need to be the same in terms of font and size and just overall formatting, because it just looks better that way. So that wraps up resumes. And so if you have like more specific questions about your field or your industry, like contact information will be at the end of this, and you can reach out to our office to schedule an appointment. Every industry is different, and resumes are really personal because you're putting you into the world. At the end of the day, it's about you telling your story and the story that you want to tell. And so these can be really personal documents. And so we're more than happy to work with you on an individual basis to look into how we can help your resume improve for your other applications. So LinkedIn. So you want to talk about a buzzword. A buzzword is LinkedIn. It is, happening these days. LinkedIn is probably my favorite thing ever. Maybe not ever. I appreciate bottled water and other fancy fun things that are going on. So LinkedIn is a professional social network. What it is not Facebook, it is not Instagram, and it's not Twitter. It is its whole other thing. So it's not a place where you want to, post pictures of you at the beach or anything like that. Like, this is where you want to share your work accomplishments and where you want to network, because we all know that it's about who you know. And so a lot of folks ask us questions like, so somebody talked about being a stay-at-home mom and re-entering the workforce. Somebody asked about switching to different industries but they have the transferable skills, but they want to, change industries. All of those changes require networking so that you can get your resume noticed, especially when you're changing industries or making a big life adjustment. Like, you need to know people that work in those companies and work in those areas. And LinkedIn is the greatest tool to do that. You can just do it at home in your pajamas. It's awesome. You can do it on your phone while you're in the car. It's fantastic. So I'm going to go through a couple different profiles that we've got here of folks in my office. So first off, Julie Schrader, which I wouldn't be surprised if any of you know her because she's awesome. She's a Butler alum and has been at Butler for 13 years. So first thing you notice, she's got a really nice professional headshot, but also a nice professional background photo. All of her information's up here about her current job. And she has a bio here. So a little bit about just who she is, a little description, some of her specialties, her strengths, strong and Myers-Briggs results. In ICS, we're all a little obsessed with this kind of stuff. We're a little nerdy. So it shows what she's been up to, that she's liked things, she shared things. Look, she shared the alumni webinar. So way to go, Julie. So she has her tasks listed in sentence format. She also has some media of when she was in a Butler magazine article. And so she lists all of her different experiences, all of her education. So see, she goes all the way back. So she includes all of her work history. Also, some of her volunteer experiences here, her skills, recommendations. So she's given 13 and received 6. So giving recommendations is a good way to get recommendations. It also makes you look like a very nice person when you've given 13 recommendations. And I can vouch that she is a very nice person. Also, so here's some of her interests. Like, what is she following? What is she doing? So that is one way to do it. Then I'll show you one of our recent student interns. So she does hers a little bit different. So her nice picture, she's studying abroad in Ireland right now. So that's what the picture is for. So she has a short bio just about what she's interested in and where she wants to go. And that's great. It's concise. So she's a freelance photographer, videographer. So she shares some of her pieces here. Some of her volunteer opportunities. And notice what I like about hers that is different is that she has a brief description of what she's doing, but then she's also has bullet points to kind of do the traditional resume format as well. So I think that that's really helpful. But then you look at mine, we'll do mine. I had to get a little cute. I had to have some pink in there. It's just who I am. So, but again, this is me. This is the image I want to project into the world, is that, like, you know, I have like an organized, nice LinkedIn, but like a little pop of color and a little fun, and that's okay. It's not unprofessional to have that. At least not in my field. So I have bullet points. I copy and paste what's on my resume and I put it on LinkedIn. I use LinkedIn basically as my online resume, especially because you can apply for jobs through LinkedIn, like with your profile, and that's super helpful. So those are a few examples of different profiles that we've got going on here. So again, my education, I have my study abroad experience on here, my volunteer experiences, some skills, recommendations, all that. Ooh. So when you're building your profile, you want to have like your nice professional headshot. You want to have a nice cover photo in the back. Don't crop people out of a photo. Make sure you have professional dress. It's like you can tell when you crop people out, unless you can do like a really good cropping job. Then you want to include your education, like where you went to school, because that's very important. And I'll show you in a little bit what cool things you can do with that. What are all of your jobs? Include that volunteer experience. Also having a brief bio, a description of yourself. For me, I view this as like a mini, like general cover letter. So what story do you want to tell about your career and the path that you're going? Recommendations are also really helpful. That way people can see like the value of your work through the word of other people. And I think that these tangibles are really important. And that's one thing that I can do to improve my resume. So Julie and Emily's resumes had those attached pieces on there of like, here's an article that I've been in. Emily's had like the videos of her freelance work. So, okay, she's a freelance photographer. Let's see what she can do right then and there. Like, you don't have to go messaging and figuring it out. Like, no, it's available. So those are great things to have. So you've built your profile, you're ready to go out into the world and network using LinkedIn. So what does that look like? So for me, as I think about my job, my career, I really love the world of being in education. So what are some other institutions and things I can follow? So for me, it's like, what companies do I have, you know, like where are other places I'd be interested in working or seeing what's going on? So Indiana University Bloomington is one. Ascend Indiana is a great company and they do some workforce development. So this way you can follow, so you follow them, you know, a little bit about what they're doing, how many connections you have at the company, and they share articles or news. And And it's great because Ascend is a place that we work a lot with in our office. So I know what's going on in their office. I know when they're hiring. So if we're going to be possibly engaging with some new team members, also if like they're just sharing accomplishments of their own organization, I know what's going on. So when you follow a company, they come into your feed like we saw at the beginning. So the other awesome thing is, so you can just see all of their employees on LinkedIn. And do I have connections? So here are all the people that work there. And now I know how I'm connected to them. So a first connection means that you are directly connected with that person. A second connection means that you share somebody. So Elizabeth and I here have 3 shared connections. And a third means, which since I know people that work here, it's very unlikely there's a third here. But if there's a third, that means that they are, okay, so I'm connected to somebody, that third, and they're connected to somebody, and that person that we're mutually connected with is connected with them. So it's like the web of how you're connected with them through one person. So that's a little bit of how those works. So the other way that you can do this is just go to, so you want to search for jobs. Okay, so you can follow your companies that you're interested in working for, or people that you work with, so that you can stay up to date on the organizations like I do with Ascend. The other piece would be, you can just do your general search bar. So for me, let's see, let's say you want to work in finance too. So finance and jobs. I don't have LinkedIn Premium. You could if you wanted, but I can do a lot of things without it. So here I can see all of these different financing jobs. So these are a lot of internships. I look at a lot of internships because of the nature of my work, so that's kind of why they're coming up. But senior assistant co-op. So you can just use the search bar and you can search by the date posted, all that stuff. Then you can also join groups. So Butler being Butler, I know that we have a huge Greek community, so I'm a part of my sorority's networking group. And you should also join the Butler University Alumni Networking Group, or so you can join the general one, but then also all the alumni chapters have their own as well. So that is definitely something to check out. Or maybe you just have mutual interests. So you should look into those, because then you have a great platform. And now I'm about to show you my absolute favorite thing of LinkedIn, and I use it every single day. Okay, so, and this is why it's important to include your education. So you go to linkedin.com/alumni. What it does is LinkedIn has categorized all alumni of all universities pretty much in the world, because I did this with the school that I studied abroad at too. And they pull all of this data of all the people that went to your school, or who say on LinkedIn that they went to your school. So I can search them down to, it tells me how many people on LinkedIn say that they live or work in these different areas. So, all right, so let's say I want to network with people in Washington, D.C. Okay, so and I want them to be like, and I don't know anybody in D.C. So, all right, I'm going to start with some alumni. I can just click here, so it pulls all of these, and I can see where they all work. Or maybe it's not so much that I want to like work at a specific company, but I know I want to work in education. So now I scroll all the way down, and I can find all these different people who are Butler alumni who work in education. So we've got somebody who's a candidate at a master's candidate at Georgetown who's a Butler alum. People who work in a director of job and career development, and I can go through until I find people that I'm interested in talking to. And obviously, if you're connecting with other alumni, it's a little bit easier of like a blind connection to make, because you have something in common. And I encourage you to reach out and message people and get to know new people. Networking is about putting yourself out there. And I mean, what's the worst that could happen? Somebody says no. Okay, whatever. You dust the dust off and figure it out, move forward. So this is a really fun tool to play around with, and we use it in ICS all the time. So if you've ever received a LinkedIn message from anyone in our office, it's probably through this tool. Also, if you got your master's somewhere other than Butler, you can go through your master's program. You also, interestingly enough, you don't have to, like, I can look up any school. Like, just because I went to Butler doesn't mean I can only look at Butler alum. You can do it for any school. So that's pretty cool too. If for some reason that, like, you work at a different university or something like that, need to look it up, you can do that. So some other just general tips and tricks about LinkedIn that are really important. And these are just some basics. So first, I have some bad news in that LinkedIn is really sneaky because basically your automatic settings, let's see, where is this? Oh, here we go. Your settings are automatically like set to, whenever you update your profile, it notifies everyone you're connected with via email, which is, first off, super annoying to get from your connections. And number two, kind of embarrassing when you find out that you're getting that from your other connections. And you don't want to do that because that's just a pain in the butt. So what you want to do is you want to go to settings like we did, and then privacy. And you scroll down to sharing profile edits. And you want to say no. So that, because every time you update it, it's going to send it out via email, which if you're like me, sometimes you just kind of mess with it just to see what it might look like. And then you're like, oh, that's terrible. Like, you don't want somebody to send it out that you made an update and then you made an update again 10 minutes later. That's annoying. So that is the first thing. That's just like a must that you need to just fix up. The other thing is to edit your public profile and URL. There are a lot of people that are including their LinkedIn on their resumes these days and hyperlinking it so that when you look at it in PDF form, you can see it, which I think is really awesome. And that's something I could update on my own resume. So it's really annoying when you are on here, let's see, and you see like all of these like Casey Schreiner, like -1079, whatever. Like, it's annoying. And you don't want to put that on your resume because it looks silly. But I'm going to teach you how to change that. So you go to edit your public profile and URL, and you edit your URL to just be your name. Now, if your name is John Smith, you might have to be a little creative and use your middle initial or your full name. But you do want to try to get rid of those numbers as much as possible and all those symbols because it can be irritating. Last but not least, you want to update this about every 6 months so that it's up to date and you know what's going on. So that other people in your connections know what's going on and what you're doing and what you're interested in. So like I started my job here at ICS in September and I just updated mine to include my new position. Since I was new, you know, defining my position is a little more difficult as I'm, you know, settling in, but now it's all set, 6 months, and in 6 months I'll update it again, probably with other accomplishments that I've done or volunteer opportunities, maybe a new picture, maybe a new cover photo, something like that. So that is really important. So we're going to start wrapping this up to do Q&A and answer some of your questions. But before we move into that, I just want to let you all know, because I know some of you might jump off before we do Q&A, that you are always welcome to schedule an appointment with ICS. And we have a few different ways to do that. And our follow-up email tomorrow will include some of this information as well, which I highly encourage that you read because we all have a survey in there. And since this is our first time doing this, we want to hear from you, participants, about what you think, suggestions, comments, concerns. We'd love to hear from you because this is something that we're excited about and we are here to serve you and help you. And we want to know how to do it the best way we can. So if you want to schedule an appointment with ICS, you can email career@butler.edu. You can give us a call, or you can schedule online on Handshake. You'll have to, that's our career management portal in our office. It's pretty cool because we share it with about 400 different schools. So we have jobs from all over the country on there, and it's not just internships, and it's not just for recent grads, it's for everybody. And so that could be a good tool for you to check out, so you can get it online there. So schedule an appointment, come check it out. It'll be awesome. So what questions do you guys have? Because we are here to answer them, and we've got about 15 minutes. Oh, I already got my first one. Way to go, overachiever. Who is it? All right, so can we access the slides from this presentation? Yes, because this is being, well, I will send them along and we will send them to you. What would you say to including your headshot on a resume? I would not, because it's on your LinkedIn, and if they're a good recruiter, they're probably creeping your social media as well, so they get a feel for that. Unless you are in the performing arts industry, I don't think that it's necessary, because they can find you other ways in this creepy 21st century that we lived in. Okay, I think this is an awesome question. So on your LinkedIn profile, what is best to use as a headline when you are currently unemployed and do not want the last position you were listed? So I know a few people that put their oh, here we go. Let me get out of this so that I can do this. That kind of tailor their general profession. So I've seen people who are like communications director, like they just put communications specialist, and they don't have their employer listed. So you could do something like that kind of tailors to your industry. One of our rock star students here at Butler has this, like, bold change agent seeking full-time opportunities. So just kind of a little piece about who he is and what he's doing. So that could be something that you could consider as well. Any other questions? We had a lot of questions from folks beforehand about just transitioning industries. Maybe they've been at a job for a long time and wanting to find something new. And how do they do that? How do they navigate that? So does anybody have any other questions to speak to that as well? We have them on, so the question is, how do we see the questions that were here before that we started? So we have them from your surveys. So will we be holding any more of these sessions? You know, I hope that we do. So this is the first, one, and I really hope that we move forward. So if you liked it, fill out your survey so that we have some concrete responses from alumni, knowing that this was something that you all enjoyed. Yes, and talking about other ways to job search, because there are so many different ways to talk about the job search. It's not just about resumes and LinkedIn. It's about so many things, like salary negotiation, what to do if you're wanting to move cities, all of that sort of thing. I've heard online application portals described as black holes. Is networking always the route worth taking? Yes, 100%. Networking is just like the most important thing that you can do, I think, in today's economy, just because you have to build relationships, and you have to get your resume noticed. It's hard to take a chance on somebody when you don't know anything about them, and you don't know, like, people can be one way in an interview and then they can turn out to be a totally different employee. But it's a much easier, safer risk to do, to like know and hire somebody that you know. And so networking is super important. I also think it's a great way to learn more about you and what you're interested in, like knowing like the culture of a company, knowing the tasks of a job. So all of those sorts of things are really important. Just taking coffees with people, going to networking events. Maybe if you are more introverted and the thought of networking is like the worst thing in the world, like, I get you, I feel you. Sometimes I go to networking events and I'm like, I only want to talk to a few people. And there are some great ways to do that. So either, sending emails, doing a phone call can be helpful because you're in your own space and you're not like having to like be on in person as well. So you can just like listen. if you go to a networking event, like setting a goal for yourself of just like talk to 3 people and you can go home and put on your pajamas and introvert out. So those are a few tips I have for that. So what if we do not want our current employer to know that we're looking for new employment opportunities? Then I would I wouldn't put bold change agent seeking full-time opportunities first off. I think that's okay, but you're going to need to network and you're going to need to build other relationships around that. So for your references, especially, you're going to want people that can speak to the work that you do that are not from your current employer. And so I think taking meetings like that are really important. And when you're job hunting, sometimes that means you have to take a day off to do it. And that stinks, but it's just kind of the way the process goes. Or coffees after hours, things like that, I think are things that you have to do if you don't want your current employer to know that you're looking for new employment. But also, like, if you're being active on LinkedIn, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're looking for a new job. But you can also set privacy settings as well, so that only certain people can see certain things. So you can do that as well if you don't want your boss to know that you're looking. So any other questions? We're happy to say and answer as many questions as you've got for as long as you want, because we're here for you. I do have to take some water though, because I've been talking I'm usually a big chatter, but this is, longer than I normally talk. Another thing I'll mention too is I think that the alumni feature is awesome if you're wanting to change cities, because maybe your spouse got a new job or you want to go do something new or whatnot. It can be really helpful. My boyfriend was in Raleigh for a year, and I used LinkedIn to try to find some opportunities, and I got an interview out of it. So LinkedIn was super helpful for that as well. It's great to meet with folks from all over. Alrighty, so it doesn't look like we have any more questions coming in, and if you do, you have the office's contact information on here as well, and you'll get my contact information in the survey, and we'll attach the slides. Fill out the survey so that we know your thoughts on this, and we just super appreciate you just taking some time to invest in yourself and invest in your professional development, and to use our office and the alumni office to do so. We're really excited about this, and so thanks for spending some of your evening with us, or for some of you, it's the end of your day if you're out in Cali. Thank you so much, and we will have this recorded as well if you want to go back and check it out again. Have a good evening. Thank you.